Hello, everybody. Today we have Akanksha Sharma amongst us. She is Global Head ESG at Sterlite Technology Limited. Hello, Akanksha, and welcome to BW Businessworld.
Hello, Urvi. Thank you so much for having me here.
Great. I hope you're keeping well and work from office has begun.
Absolutely. In full swing.
That's good to hear. We still have the spirits going high. So with that, let me ask you, we have all learned a lesson in the last 2.5 years that we have one planet and sustainability is of pivotal importance. So how have the ESG, that is the environment, social and governance trends, changed in the last 2 years? And what are the patterns that we are noticing now?
See, prior to COVID, there was already increasing focus on ESG investing globally. And it is likely that this focus will only increase following the COVID spread. So post-pandemic, almost all businesses started focusing on sustainable investing even more. And so as per data, 32% of consumers spend more on brands that are environmentally responsible. And as action and awareness of long-term sustainability risks are likely to increase even further after the aftermath of COVID-19 crisis, this is a positive catalyst for ESG. So, fundamentally, Asia has long been laggard in ESG investing, but the movement is now spreading there too in a very big way. And ESG disclosures, regulations are being adopted or discussed in multiple jurisdictions. So, I would say that the world post-COVID-19 continues to remain volatile, as we all know. However, despite all of these chaos, the ESG framework and practices have begun to occupy center stage, not just in boardrooms, but also in government. And I also feel that it is starting to be recognized as a potent tool for risk elevation, resilience, and safeguarding the sustainability of planet, people, profits, and more integral to businesses. So, for example, in India, SEBI has made Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report, which is BRSR, mandatory from next financial year. And this is a tremendous move towards robust ESG reporting, more transparency, disclosures. More so, as it is, part of corporate's annual report, it becomes imperative for companies to relook at their operations and ensure that, there's a mandatory disclosure on all of these aspects as well. In the past, we have also seen introduction of carbon border tax and other such regulations introduced across the globe post-pandemic. And this is just an indication of the importance of ESG, that it has been gaining around the world. On social front, also, we are now seeing more partnerships and innovative social financing options. SEBI has just mandated social stock exchange in India that will further enable sustainable and evidence-driven impact investing options. And I think the announcement of social stock exchange is another development that will keep drive real change, which is transparent and more data-driven. So, in overall, I think all of this has accelerated by the pandemic, allowing funders to reach the grassroots and significantly more lives, making it the overall scheme of things more effective, efficient, transparent, and data-driven.
Okay, so talking about specifics, what is the STL approach to sustainability and ESG?
So as individuals, businesses, and economies, we all aspire to grow. But, now this growth needs to take shape with principles of sustainability at the core. So ESG practices have always been a very integral part of our business policies and philosophy, with a very sharp focus on energy and waste management, water stewardship, green product development, sustainable employee diversity, social impact, governance. We continue to grow responsibly. So I think all of these are at the very center when it comes to STL. In fact, our entire business strategy is based on our vision of transforming billion lives through digital networks. It's a very ambitious goal that drives all of us together. And it is closely linked with not just India's national priorities, but also global agenda. So therefore, I would say that apart from the products and services that we offer, all our ESG efforts contribute to bridging the digital and the socioeconomic divide through innovative, eco-friendly, and sustainable offerings that create last mile access and solutions. In terms of areas that are business priority and are also focused on within our communities, include priority areas like gender equality, We are extremely focused on healthcare and well-being, also on digital education, particularly for rural communities. Like I said, we focus on bridging the digital divide along with the socioeconomic disparities that we have, and environment conservation. Besides our social impact practices and the thematic areas that I have just talked about, we are also extremely focused on zeroing our emissions and have extremely ambitious goals on water positivity, zero waste to landfill. We have already taken zero waste to landfill certifications by a third party for all our operations. Sustainable sourcing, which also reflects the commitment to overall environmental sustainability. Having said all of this, we are also signatories to United Nations Global Compact, UN Women Empowerment Principles, and we align every single endeavor with all the UN guiding principles that helps us achieve 15 out of 17 SDGs, which are Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations. So all of this speaks volume about how integrated business is with our ESG practices, and how committed we are to reaching out to communities, conserve environment through not just the business that we do, but also the entire ecosystem movement.
Okay, so of course, 15 out of 17 is really commendable, and it's almost like a benchmark you're setting for everybody else out there, for other corporates and even individuals and environmental enthusiasts. But can you tell us about some specifics that STL is doing to promote sustainability, some recent initiatives?
So like I said, though ESG is already at the core of our business operations, there are also very relentless and I would say continued efforts and focus on stepping it up further. For example, we committed to become a net zero emission company by 2030. And to achieve this target, we believe that in addition to transiting from renewables, we need to also optimize our energy consumption. And we have reduced over 7,500 tons equivalent of carbon dioxide through such efforts, and are also making continuous investments to make more proficient systems that are more resilient, lesser on emissions and more efficient as well. We have transformed everyday living for over 1.3 million people across, and planted about 1.7 trees, replenished 1.4 million cubic meters of water in communities. And I'm sharing some of the data points that could really build and talk about how quantifiably we measure our performance. So by 2030, we aim to become water positive across all our manufacturing locations globally. And to achieve this target, we implemented water recycling models. All of our manufacturing plants are zero liquid discharge, particularly in Aurangabad. And we are working to replicate these best practices across all operational plants. And 5 of our 6 manufacturing units in India are already zero waste to landfill certified. This is a big one. And like I was mentioning, everything is so integrated when it comes to environment that you cannot talk about waste away from emissions. So, while our Shendra Waluj cable plant, Rakoli and Dadra are level 1 certified, Waluj has level 2 certification, and diverting a lot of waste, and not just diverting away from landfill, but also putting it into circularity, which is a big one. We also conduct life cycle evaluations for our product families, and which is a cradle to grave assessment to tell us product eco footprint completely. And we have already done that for 10 product families till date, and we have an aspiration of covering 100% by 2030. And all these are very technical frameworks, but they also guide us, not just our customers and us, but the entire ecosystem on how responsible business practices can be integrated, not just in terms of CSR or social impact, but in the very core of business. So our efforts for local procurement of suppliers in cable manufacturing, we have also increased that from 55% to 61% in FY22. So all of this, was factually based on data, and this is how we try to monitor ourselves, set standards and keep improvising on most of them.
Okay, STL has done some very commendable work so far. But what's ahead for STL? What are your ESG goals for the future?
As a global tech business, we aspire to build green, resilient, and sustainable networks, which are digital. To do so, we have strengthened our focus on sustainability by committing to environmental stewardship, driven at the forefront by achieving net zero emissions by 2030. In addition to this, we have taken another 4 goals, like I said earlier, for 2030, which pertain to our operations and also for our social impact programs. So apart from net zero emissions, we have taken goals to achieve water positivity, sustainable sourcing, ensure 100% of our manufacturing facilities are zero waste to landfill certified. 100% of our product families are covered under life cycle assessment. So we know what is our impact on the environment. And through our community initiatives also, we aim to transform lives for 5 million people, replenish 5 million cubic meter of water, and also undertake 5 million plantations by 2025. These are very, very ambitious goals, and we are really keeping our fingers crossed.
Of course, they say in English that you aim for the stars, so you might reach the moon. So it's always good to have very big and elaborate goals. We don't know, we might even land up achieving them. So one more thing I wanted to ask you, that when we talk about ESG, the focus is usually on environment for most people. People tend to ignore the social aspect of it. So at your end, how is STL being a positive part of the community? How are you making an impact on society at large?
That's a very good question, because in FY22, STL reached out and benefited over 1.3 million people across some of the remotest regions of the country. And and when I say that, I really mean some far-flung areas and districts like Gadchiroli, Nandurbar, and aspiration districts that have been also identified and flagged off by Niti Aayog. So our healthcare and COVID-19 relief program, which we also blended social behavioral change efforts along with, have reached out to over 1 million lives, ensuring better resilience and recovery rates during COVID period. Throughout the pandemic, we continue to offer quality healthcare facilities and oxygen supply, along with other emergency care, to rural areas and hospitals. In addition to this, we also realigned ongoing programs to offer COVID-19 related treatments and the post-COVID treatments also, through teleconsultation, doorstep testing, vaccinations, anywhere, anytime, and access to doctor 24/7 on teleconsultation. I think this was a very big relief, especially in areas where the primary healthcare was totally broken during COVID. And I think there a very important role private sector and companies like ours played in not just supporting the public sector, but in providing a great relief to the citizens. So our programs have helped over the overburdened healthcare system during the pandemic, and we reached out to around 200 villages across aspiration districts of Gadchiroli, Nandurbar, and Aurangabad. So this is one. Along with this, we are extremely focused, like I said, on gender equality initiatives, and we have a program called Jeevan Jyoti, through which we are reaching out to about 800 women in becoming financially independent, and provide them vocational skills, leadership training, microfinancing linkages, and through self-help groups, we help them become completely self-reliant. So over the years, the program has been providing women across 100 villages in Vele district, which is in the outskirts of Pune, with a holistic system, and provides not just transport, creche, and the basic facilities that any woman would need when she comes out of a home for skilling or livelihood, but enable them to lead the way they change. And I have some beautiful examples, like, during COVID, there was a woman I remember who called us saying that, when a lot of people were laid off from large companies around the world, I'm still able to make 8 to 10,000 every month, because we connected them to some global marketplaces like Amazon, IKEA, and trained them on making handcrafted products. So I think these are real stories of empowerment. Also, during the pandemic, our digital empowerment initiative in Pune ensured that internet platforms were fully utilized, and for basic access to essential services, including learning opportunities. And we were trying to equip people with livelihood opportunities through digital technology. So digital literacy, we have realized, is still a very, very important skill which we wanted to focus upon. Besides this, we were also doing a program on digital education across Aurangabad, Nandurbar, and Silvassa. And this program reached out to over 100,000 children in all the rural areas and marginal communities, especially those who were, because the education system was again badly disrupted due to COVID. And this included training school faculty and teachers on digital training mechanism, as well as partnering with the government schools and communities to ensure that they impart trainings. And the school children, and most of these, if you would see, are very tribal and remote areas. So teachers find it very difficult to reach out to even schools and learn how to impart. So we wanted to really make sure that the students don't feel left out during all of these years. And the program has beautiful evidence and data points on how the education level has increased. We have also a very strict monitoring mechanism, which is a software-based tool to tell us stories of how is it helping, not just in improvising the education grade, but also health and gender of a divide of kids in schools. Besides this, I'll take 2 more minutes, Urvi.
Yes, please.
We are also working on water in a very big way. And, so we have built 8 water resilient villages in drought-prone areas of Aurangabad. And in addition to constructing and developing 85 storage and community water bodies, along with government, local administration bodies, and communities, we have been able to create livelihood opportunities and introduce sustainable agriculture practices through convergence and drive behavioral change. I think this is a very underrated area, because when we talk about water, not many people would know that about 70% of water is utilized only in agriculture, not in industries. So it's very, very important for us that when we talk about water in a holistic way, starting with groundwater recharge to water positivity, how do we train agriculture communities on the best kind of irrigation practices and use of water becomes extremely important. And it goes, I believe, hand in hand with whatever water storage and conservation practices you adopt. And with all of this, we try keeping volunteering at the very core to our culture at STL. And our employees, they identify causes which they feel very related to. And even during the lockdowns, they were helping communities virtually through mentorship, education, and they were reaching out to people through a lot of learning and sharing opportunities, which I believe is again a very cultural thing that we were trying to drive. And with all of this, we could bag about 80 awards. 25 of them were only in the financial year 22 across all the areas. So I think there have been enough data points and evidences on the work that we are driving for communities.
It's not just social work that you're doing, it's a lot of noble work, especially with respect to making the facility of doctors available and empowering women and making them financially independent. So with that, Akanksha, I would like to take your leave for the day, and thank you so much for joining us and taking our time to share your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Urvi, and thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you so much.